Welcome to the Think Generational Wealth Podcast, episode number 48. And I am your host, Amir Estimo. In today's episode, I just wanted to share with you guys what I've been up to, whether it's work, side hustles, entrepreneur endeavors, also just even family life too, because I know it's good to be able to, for people to relate to you. And anybody that who is on the fence about starting a podcast, find something that you're passionate about. And I'm just like you guys, everyday person working. I'm looking to I don't want to say looking, or not even say want to, I will transition out of corporate America until full time entrepreneurship. But in the meantime, I would like to share my journey with you guys. So I've noticed. First, I'd like to say thank you for everyone that does listen to this podcast, that takes the time to listen to it. Because you could be doing anything in the world. The fact that you're taking the time to listen to this podcast is much appreciated. Do your boy a favor. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe to the podcast. Get the word out. Generational wealth. That's the reason I started this podcast. And I would like to share with you guys my why. So I think that's always good. And for me, this is the Journey podcast because anybody that has a passion, something that they want to do in life, I noticed that you want to go for it while you're here. And let me just go ahead and jump into the episode. So I'll just be sharing with you guys any updates that I have. But share the content, subscribe to the podcast, rate and review the podcast wherever you get it. It'll be much appreciated for your boy. While I get this information out here again, I appreciate each and every one of you guys who take the time to listen to the podcast. I've noticed that the podcast has been gaining some listenership. Again, I appreciate it. But again, if you're on the fence about anything, whether it's even starting a podcast, YouTube, do something, get yourself out there. Let the world see your gift. Don't keep your gift to yourself. Let the world see your gift. So for me, the reason I started this podcast, and honestly, I am 48 episodes in. And one thing I have to recognize is that you don't want to compare yourself to the next person because everyone's journey is different. So I got caught up in that. I myself got caught up in that, but I had to stop and realize and say to myself, I cannot compare myself to the next person's journey because sometimes what could happen is while you're on social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, you can get caught up in the scrolling activity that leads you into that rabbit hole of where you start finding yourself comparing yourself to everyone else. But sometimes you have to stop and realize that it's okay. I am 48 episodes in this podcast, and I have yet to hit 1,000 downloads. Some of that is my doing, and the reason I say that is I think if I was more consistent with it, because I went times where I took times off from the podcast, and then you kind of lose that motivation. But then you realize, like my wife and my daughter, like, hey, Dad, we haven't heard you record a podcast. What's going on? And you're like, whoa, oh man, it's been 6 months. And I realized the more consistent, because it's about consistency. So again, I have less than 1,000 downloads, and I could probably compare myself to someone who probably has that in one episode. But that's okay. I had to realize that it is okay to not be where your journey may not go as fast as the next person. So, like for me, I want to transition out of corporate America. But there's various steps that you have to take to get there. So you can't just boom make a decision like that and not think of all the impact that it's going to trickle down to. So you have to be really assured when you make a move like that. So thank generational wealth, we're averaging about 25 downloads an episode, and I realized that recording a podcast. I used to when I first started the podcast. I used to record sporadically, so I never had a set time. Then I tried recording a podcast on Fridays, and then for whatever reason, Fridays is not really a good day for podcasts because most of the time people are checked out. And if you're in corporate America, you're probably checked out by 9 a.m., meaning you start at 9. By the time you get there, it's Friday, you're checked out at 9. So I don't know how many you guys could relate to that, but trust me, on Fridays, you just don't want to be there. But that's that to someone else that may be, hey, it's Friday, they're happy. Everybody is different, but that's just me. But anywho, now I realize that it's going to take time. So it's going to take time. So thank generational wealth. We're averaging about 25 downloads. Again, much appreciated. I appreciate you guys that take the time to listen to the podcast. It is much appreciated. And honestly, I just don't really. I enjoyed podcasting because when I first started a podcast, I didn't really have a sense of direction yet of where I really wanted to go with the podcast. So hence the breaks that I took in between. But one thing when you think about podcasting, YouTube, these things live on the net forever. So if for whatever reason something ever would happen to you, God forbids, that but your knowledge in that meantime you share that in the world. It is crazy on YouTube how I see people have, and that's probably one of the most tough. That was probably one of the most toughest media outlets to really grow a channel on, to grow an audience. YouTube, because it takes a while. But that stuff you can go find information, and there's information on YouTube that's up there, and it's now whatever how to convert from VHS to digital. But there's all that information out there. So there's so much ways to consume information. But I realized that it's okay to take time. It's okay for my journey to be slower than the next person. I just appreciate now if one day the podcast has 1 million downloads, I'm still going to feel the same way that I did about 1,000 downloads, 10 downloads, 100 downloads than I would about 1 million downloads. And the reason is that even the ones that you have now, so if there's an average of 25 downloads an episode, then that means there's 25 people that are listening to the content. Whereas, let's say in YouTube, you probably just skim through, but in a podcast, most people consume podcasting, whether it's probably mowing the lawn, cooking, maybe working out, and they're listening to it in entirety. So you have to appreciate the people that is with you now, just like you would appreciate them if there's 1 million downloads. So the people now I much appreciate. So 25 downloads, that's fine, and I appreciate that. So other than that, I've also started a land investing course. I really think there's so much potential out there in land investing. Now we know right now this current market, the housing market is really hot. It is so expensive right now to buy homes. And if you put an offer in for a home, there's probably like four or five other people. And some of these people, especially here in Texas, are paying cash because they come in from California or wherever because Texas is a hot market and they're paying cash for these things. And if you have to do an FHA or conventional loan, that's not the same. So cash talks, right? So I started thinking, so think generational wealth started because I was just I sat there one time and I said to myself, the next generation, right now, I have the opportunity for the time that I'm here, I have the opportunity to make an impact, to set the next few generations behind me. So I started thinking about ways to create generational wealth. Because I can't expect anything from the government, can't expect any handouts. That's one thing this pandemic has taught any of us is that you have to come out of this either better or worse. There's no way to it. So you have to think is how are you going to come out? How are you going to come out of this? And I know right now I can come out a better version of myself. For one, invest in myself. Do things that are different. Now, there's a joke. Black people don't like the water. For me, I've been scuba diving several times. And it was such an experience while you're underneath the ocean. You're in a different world and it's so peaceful. You just do things that are different. And it's okay. You don't have to follow the trend. You can do different things. You can experience different things in life. And we don't always have to tie it with color, but we do at times. And that's one time when people say that, I say, oh, okay. And that's fine, but this black person does not. Because there's certain experiences in life you'll miss out if you just follow the trend. So for me, this podcast, I really wanted to get the message of generational wealth, whether it's whoever you are. And yes, I am a black man. I am descendant of Haitian and all the turmoil we've had in my country recently. One thing I can honestly say is sometimes when you look at that, and you have to be thankful for your situation. And that doesn't mean that you're better than the next person. It's just your situation, which just happened to be different. I was born here I was born here in the United States. So my trajectory, for whatever reason, is different than somebody else that live in a third world country that has to struggle, who has to see so much struggle. And anybody can relate to is you want the best for your kids. So if you're a parent, you want the best for your kids. So you work hard so your kids don't get to see those things. So I have to appreciate the time, the information that's out there so I can progress and be different. And then hopefully I can put my arm out and everybody else does the same. That's why I'm taking a course right now on land investing. I want to learn about land because it's such a big opportunity out there. There's not too many of us that look like me that's in that industry. So that could be my calling. So I'll update you guys on that, let you guys know how that goes. But that's all part of generational wealth. Imagine, imagine this. Think about this. Let's say you own land and Some big company comes and wants to build on your property. It's you, and you're collecting. Obviously, you have to pay taxes, but you're collecting residual income. You can set that for the next few generations. And it starts with all the education we have to do with each other. So that's a reason why I'm going to land investing. So I appreciate you guys for listening to this podcast. Thank you very much. Thank you guys very much. Again, I appreciate you guys. But yes, I have that going on. And obviously, still being a dad, a husband, an employee. But you know what, guys? And anybody else that's in this position right now who's listening to this podcast, if you're in this position right now, it's okay. It's okay. It's about what I see that the more action you take, the better you become. The more action you take. So I'll let you guys know. And I will do a case study once I close a land deal. I will do a case study on the podcast and hopefully to inspire anyone to look at land investing. Like I said, the housing market is really hot right now. So I mean, you have to think outside the box. You get good at one thing, you get good at this. You get Jim Rohn says that's how you become. The more skills you have, you become valuable to the marketplace. So once I close my first deal, for my first three deals, I will do a case study on here and hopefully to inspire you guys to go and take action. Okay? So thank you for listening to the podcast. Other than that, I will see you guys, talk to you guys next week. And what should everybody be thinking? Generational wealth. Until next time, see you next week.